Today on the We Invested podcast, we have Amanda Kay, and she is the founder of the Passive Income Investors Group. Amanda, how are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me, Wesley.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining. And, before we get started, would you mind letting the people know where they could find you on social media or your websites, anywhere on the internet?
Yep. So I am on all channels for Facebook, LinkedIn, and then also my website is passiveincomeinvestorsgroup.com. So everything you can look up Passive Income Investors Group, and I will be there under that title. I don't have, it's really just Facebook and LinkedIn that I have for social media.
Awesome. So let's just start from the top and talk a little bit about, where you're from and where you grew up.
Mhm. Yep. So I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I lived there for 30 years. I did a lot of my largest professional growth experience came from working there, and I worked for Fortune 50 companies. I was a financial advisor out there. Then I just kind of decided that I wanted to try something new. So at 30, I wasn't married, didn't have kids. I was like, man, I need to do this transition right now. So I ended up moving and came out to Dallas, Texas, and did what everyone does when they move to Texas and started in oil and gas. I did investments, sold mineral rights, pipelines, tank fabrication, anything you can think of, drilling deals, and I absolutely loved it. Became fascinated about how much energy and oil impacts literally every single thing that we do in our lives. And so now I'm currently based in Dallas, but I miss Arizona, and so I'm relocating back next month.
And how would you say that growing up in Phoenix impacted your outlook on life and success?
I've been very blessed. Very close with my dad, and he is very competitive in sports by nature. And I'm the youngest of six, so I really had to fight to keep up and be scrappy as I could be and play all the sports that I could play. And I really just knew very good people, and I've been very blessed. I know it's not the case for everyone, but I had bosses who I really looked up to and who motivated me. So if I was going to pick where I'd want to work, I just got so lucky in the selections that I did. And I think a little bit of that was intentional. Where could I feel like I'm going to grow from the most? Where am I going to get the most value in the experience working there? And then in the interview process, the interviewer, you're interviewing your boss as much as they're interviewing you. And I was at Arizona State University, and I went to school for 12 hours a day on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I tried to fit as much as I could into those 2 days so that I could work 40 hours the other 5 days. And I worked for Lowe's Home Improvement, which was a lot of fun. I just did cashiering, and then they'd be like, hey, if you want to move up to customer service, hey, how would you like to promote to installs? Hey, how would you like to promote to cash office, then admin? And I just kept moving while I was still going through school. And it was such a great learning experience for me because I learned operations in every aspect of the business and how to become profitable, what they needed, what the clients needed. And then eventually, when I graduated, they offered me a position as an assistant store manager. So I did sales and operations, and I managed contractor sales. And from there, that's when my passion really took off, and I got to start seeing the other side of things and working with wealthier investors because business owners or the commercial sales clients, they have needs, they have budgets, they have everything. And so I had a lot of experience working with my bosses there who were just very incredibly passionate about everything they did. And from there, I went to Edward Jones because I liked the dollar side of things. I had to door knock for clients at Edward Jones, which teaches you a lot about yourself. You have a lot of time to spend reflecting on what you just said from every client as you walk to the next door. And so just putting myself through a lot of real really hard experiences that also made me better, I feel like, was such a big value add in Arizona. That's what I think about.
Man, that is incredible. I feel like you I feel like you said a lot of like important key
I
words
know.
and key themes in your response. But the first thing being that you were intentional and you had a vision and goals and ideas that you wanted to accomplish even at a young age, even in college. Like most people go through college and just thinking about partying or just getting through it, but you were strategic like in every step of the way from front loading your classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays to then still have the availability to be able to work 40 hours a week and learn as much as possible. I mean, I think that's an incredible mindset to have. And it also just speaks to your work ethic as well. Like being able to keep up with a 40-hour a week job and being able to manage uh those two at the same time. Um again just goes back to speak about your mindset, which is something that I really admire, and just how you absorbed all of the information and you understood how to get the most out of every situation that you were in. Every job you had, you were able to utilize it to help prepare you for the next step in life, or to be better at the next goal you set for yourself.
Yeah, I think I learned pretty early on, and it was more just my personality, and if I don't like it, if I don't enjoy it, I just cut it off. I don't want to do it. And so in in school, I was always really driven because I just had fun there. Arizona State University is a great school, but um just being on campus, you feel this vibration of energy, and it's a really big engineering school and business school, and so knowing people who are better than you, those kids are incredibly talented and smart, and so it kind of just like made me really want to be like them. And then in business too, if I'm not enjoying it, I'll be honest, when I first started, I was a cashier, and they only put me part-time, and I would call out. I just didn't see um, I just didn't see it right away. And then someone I was lucky enough sat me down and was like, "We know your personality. We've been watching you. I think you'd add a lot of value if you just applied yourself." And I really thought about it, and I was like, why am I not taking this as seriously from a financial perspective as I could? If I can move up and be full time, then and make the benefits of having health insurance, having a 401k, starting this young, and then also learn the different aspects of the business. Why am I not taking this more seriously? And so I had a real mindset shift, and then I started really enjoying what I did when I applied myself, because if you don't enjoy it and you don't think of it as a business, then you're not going to do well and succeed at it. If you think you're just showing up every day because you have a task to do, then you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to apply yourself. So when I took it as, oh, this is a learning opportunity for me with a Fortune 50 company, then why would I not take advantage of it?
Absolutely. I mean, and something else really cool that I think you said earlier was that you worked at Edward Jones and you were going door to door. And I think the door to door part is really important because a
Yeah.
lot of successful entrepreneurs, business owners had that somewhere in their history, like in their past. They had to go door to door. They had to face rejection. They had to practice on talking to people that they didn't know and have never met before. So, I mean, what experiences did you take away from that moment, from that time period in your life?
I think that was really when it clicked for me that everything in life is 100% mental. So, because in Arizona, it's 120 degrees, 115 degrees in the middle of summer. And Edward Jones is very, very strict on their dress code. So you had to wear
Mm,
a full suit. And so I'm just getting all my licenses, and they're telling you, okay, usually it takes a few years for you to get an office. So in the meantime, you have to build up your book. A little bit of it too, I think, was to weed out those who were intentional versus those who weren't, to see if they would do the actual steps and the process that it takes, because it's painful to be successful. But once you're there,
wow.
it's worth it. And so I did think a little bit of it was that. But I remember just calling my dad and being like, Dad, I have makeup running down my face, my hair is sweaty, but I got my biggest clients from going door to door, and my dad would always tell me if it was easy, everyone would do it. And that really stuck with me because I didn't want to be 80% of the new financial advisors would fail. They'd quit. They didn't want to do it. And that's across the country. And I really didn't want to be that statistic. I wanted to be someone who stood out. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. And I'm very, I don't believe in being salesy. I don't believe in being pitchy. So I took it as an opportunity of, I'm a little bit of an introvert. How do I learn how to talk to people literally at their doorstep and make them want to talk to me without pitching them? And
Right.
so it really just taught me, you just have to do it. You're not going to like it. It's going to work out. Um, be better than the failure statistic and just work through it. And then B, how do I approach people? How do I talk to people? What do they need? And that's really what it is because I can go there and tell them I need clients all day, but if I'm not providing them a solution to their needs, then they're not going to work with me. And so that was absolutely probably the biggest learning experience of my entire life. And it honestly paid out. I ended up getting my own office. They let me take, another financial advisor was leaving and they let me take over their office because I had proven myself and done so well within that first year. I had my own, and it usually takes up to 3 years.
Wow. Wow, man. I think you just said another great quote, and I had to write it down. Um, but you said it's painful to be successful. And I think that's so true. Like there are so many sacrifices that come with success. But I wanna get your perspective on that quote right there. What does that mean to you when you say it's painful to be successful?
You have to do the things that other people aren't willing to do. So, going door to door, leaving your, coming to passive income investors group, I founded this. I, made 7 figures last year and I left that to start at zero. I couldn't take my clients with me. I couldn't do anything. I've never started my own business before. A lot of people with that uncertainty wouldn't do it. You have to really have the mentality of, if I fail, I learned from it and it's going to make me even more successful in my next role, or B, I'm going to be successful and just do what it takes no matter what. And so for me, the pain comes from, it's a Saturday and we're doing this call because I want to do this call. I see the value in it. I wake up really early every day. I do personal training in the with my at my gym across the street. Every day I'm there at 5. I get up at 5:30 so I could be there by 6:30 because I know I need to work out and I'm going to work all day. So it's doing the things that most people don't want to do because it's the right thing to do and it's going to lead you to the outcome that you want. I'm a very outcome driven person. And so I don't care what it takes to do in the middle of it as long as I know that it's getting me to that outcome.
And what I'm hearing right now is just fearlessness, man. Like and having real like faith and belief in yourself, which I think is, I don't know, just hearing you talk right now, hearing your stories is really motivating to me. You say you were making 7 figures, but you left that to start your own company, which I think is incredible. But you're right, most people would not want to leave the comfort of that to start something that they don't know what the outcome could be. But I want to transition and talk a little bit about the current company that you're building and what you just mentioned. But I want to ask, what is Passive Income Investors Group?
Yeah, so kind of like we spoke about, I was a financial advisor before I did oil and gas. So a lot of my experience the last several years has been working with wealthy accredited investors. In doing so, that's more of an education that you'll ever get from any college because typically they're all entrepreneurs. And when you work nationally, you have every type of entrepreneur you can think of. I had manure salesmen, I had ice companies, I had a lot of farmers and ranchers, and a majority of the clients were dentists, doctors, lawyers. But when you get to know them on a personal level, you really understand the intricacies of not only their business, but also kind of the financial world, how they think. Um, and what I had come across is I felt like there was a lot that was missing in the alternative investment space. There's not a lot of transparency, so you're just hoping that, man, I hope this oil company's on the up and up, and that they're really drilling a well, and that they're not just going to tell me it's a dry hole and take my money and close the LLC. So I'd had a lot of clients who had lost money over and over, and they kept going, they didn't stop believing in it, but they also didn't have a lot of resources in order to make those successful investments. So I founded and created Passive Income Investors Group. So it is a membership community for alternative or for accredited investors, because I wanted to be kind of a one-stop shop for them as far as all of the resources they can need, and providing the peace of mind of safety. So what I mean by that is I have a third party do due diligence on every investment firm who works with me, which is incredibly unique because most groups like myself, what they'll do is they'll have an in-house compliance person who, you get paid to work with by the sponsors to be part of it, but they'll just say, hey, it looks good, sounds good, let's add them in. But I don't want that to be my decision. I want it to be, do they pass all of these special criteria financially, at the key principal level, and even then they can be considered. And so we do tax planning. We have every type of alternative investment you can have, and I'm a big believer in the education piece. So because if you're educated and you understand the investment, you know when to buy, you know what type of markets to get into, and really can take advantage of a lot of the opportunities that present themselves as an accredited wealthy investor.
So you just mentioned that you're a big advocate for the education component. So like how do you focus on educating your customers and your clients on these different alternative investments in, different markets?
Mhm. So I do it a few different ways. Is um, all of the sponsors who work with me, they do consistent. Part of their agreement in working with the clients is, hey, they're just top tier. I'm really excited about the people that we have working with us because they believe in what they do and they're so good with their track records. Um, they have to really go above and beyond as far as communication with their clients on what's going on with their investments. But we do what I call sponsor spotlights, or we do Zoom calls on different projects, and where the investors can just ask questions. So they'll explain the not just the specific investment, but the industry. So, for instance, agriculture, we have livestock crops. They'll come on and say, this is what we do. This is how the investment works, how the investor gets paid. This is why you invest. And they don't just do it for that specific investment. If there's a new change in government policy that's going to impact anything, we're just constantly putting out information so that way they know they're best prepared for, okay, they have the investment managed. I don't need to worry about it because I understand what's happening with it. So there's as an investor, fear and greed are usually the two drivers of investments for people, and we try to eliminate both of those by providing all of the right resources that they need, so they aren't fearful and they know better than to be greedy.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that transparency that you provide that really builds trust with your clients and with the people around you, with potential business partners. And I also feel like it shows a more human side to the financial industry, a more human side to everything that you're doing with the alternative assets, because you're displaying empathy. Like you really care about your investors, you really care about your clients, you don't want them in bad deals, and you want to make sure you go the extra mile for them to be able to protect them and really help them grow their wealth and build assets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes a lot to get to the point where you can invest in alternative assets. And I believe in these people so much in their own businesses and in their own lives. I am one of them. And I believe that people are majority good and they deserve good and they deserve the truth, even if the truth hurts. So if you're gonna say, hey, you're probably not gonna make a lot of money this year because commodity prices are down, but long term, you explain to them the actual investment, they understand. Investors and consumers in general, they just want to know what's happening. They're very reasonable. So to me, I really do think of it as like a community. I do want to do we do the live and in person events, and because I think that it's very important that the investors meet each other. So A, they can learn from each other, they can learn business tips from each other. But B, they can also say, hey, I'm invested with so and so in the group. What's your experience been? And vice versa. But with that, you have now the sponsors who are also there meeting them, they can develop those long-term relationships with their clients too, and they have the transparency of hearing another investor ask a question that they might not have thought of or were too scared to ask, but now they're hearing it, and they have to be honest with every single one, because if you tell one person one thing and one person another, you're going to get caught. So it's really, really founded on transparency, honesty, and just a great community of both investors and sponsors.
Absolutely. And that was exactly what I was about to say. That sounded like the key word to me is building a community,
Yep.
building a foundation of people where they can go to each other and talk and discuss, or whatever the case may be. But what would you say are some of the most common or lucrative um, alternative assets that investors look at?
I think the most common are the ones that are not as exciting to people. Obviously, real estate is a foundational piece to any alternative investment portfolio, and it's made more people wealthy than any other asset, I would say. I think it's really important on the type of real estate you're doing, and the structure of it and the company. But I'm a big believer in that. To me personally, and inside of the group, I, I try and say stick with the necessities, although we do have the other investments as well. So you need real estate, you need energy, and you need agriculture. So 100%
Mm,
of the population uses those three things. So if especially in an environment where we're at right now, you have a lot of influx of people coming to the United States, which means that consumption of foods and proteins and crops is going up. One of the things that I think is missing, it's so funny because most investors, they know that if something's going down, or if there's a arbitrage in a certain sector, they usually run from it. But the wealthier investors, the more educated investors go in because they know that that's the time to buy. So to me, I think the most lucrative are the ones that everybody uses. You can't avoid it. And then B, that ones that are going to generate you income, passive income consistently. And so with agriculture, for instance, there's a really, really high demand for protein right now. And not just protein, but like good protein, grass fed, handled well by the farmers and ranchers, local. You're not shipping from all over, so that way it's fresher. And so, unfortunately for consumers and day to day buyers of it, they're paying a really heavy price at the grocery store for everything, for vegetables, for fruits, for meat. And it's really unfortunate. But the other side of that is you can invest in it and have that offset on pricing. You can have, the cash flow to reinvest or redirect and do things like that. So to me, those are the most lucrative things that you can possibly be in, and also a way to protect yourself financially from higher costs on inflation and things that you're paying for day to day as well.
absolutely. I think that's a great perspective to have. And, really great advice is just to invest in the necessities. I mean, it makes so much sense. I, I hear a lot of people also say similar things like when you do want to start investing, invest in what you use the most. Because if you're using it, then there are
Yeah.
most likely millions of other people using it as well. So I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's some really, really great actionable advice. Um, you mentioned that right now prices, inflation is going crazy right now. Prices for everything is going up.
Hmm.
Um, when we've been hearing a lot in the news about uh the US dollar losing some of its value, losing some of its strength. But I want to ask, what does it mean for investors to have the value of the dollar decline and other countries move away from the US dollar as the overall global currency that's being used for trade?
Yeah, that's such a great question because whether you're an investor or not, it impacts you. So we know that FERC and there's about 20 other countries right now who have just recently moved away from using the dollar for trades and their normal everyday practices. For investors and consumers, it's detrimental because if the value of the dollar decreases, you're paying so much more for everything. The other part of that is you're losing a lot of the incentive from businesses and entrepreneurs to reinvest back into the community. So, for instance, hiring is gonna go down because if the cost of everything's higher, they're probably not selling as much. You're going to lose a lot of the employer access. Transportation is so much more expensive. Every time I remember when plane tickets round trip, well, I thought $200 was expensive. I just went to go visit my brother in Pennsylvania and it was almost 700 and I bought it weeks out. So transportation going to gas, I'm lucky enough that I work from home, so I don't have to pay that as often. But that's huge. And then also grocery costs. I mean, I spend hundreds of dollars a week on groceries, and I don't eat out. I'm very strict on that and diets, but I do eat 3 meals a day. And so, for investors, again, it goes back to you have to be a little bit pickier. Maybe you don't need the car wash investment or the ATM investment. What am I going to do that's going to generate? It's going to keep pace with inflation, but also generate me wealth. I want, I have, I want to reach them. What am I going to do that's going to stay where, keep up with what it needs to do and do more? And so we really look at assets that are going to hit those goals because anything with income you can reinvest it and continue to build that as much as possible and compound it. So I'm not a big fan of gold. I understand its need, but I don't believe in storing your money there long term. I think there was like a 10-year period where the S&P did over the 10 years over 14% average and gold did -5%. But that's at a time where it severely increased and then dropped. But during that time in holding, it generated no income unless you're in like an ETF, probably no dividends if you're in those kinds of stocks, things like that. So I think for investors with countries moving away from the dollar, you have to really think of long term and protecting your wealth because it's not going to go back. It's not moving back. And the government solution right now is to print more money and that's devaluing it even further. And we're so in debt, and people don't understand. China and Japan are the largest debt holders for the United States as far as our bonds. They're not going to continue doing that. We're not going to have any real resources of structure to keep the economy where it needs to be. So investors just need to be very smart on where they place their funds and think long term on is this a necessity? Am I gonna keep up with inflation and can I generate income beyond that?
Absolutely. No, I think you made a lot of great points. And something that I personally resonate with or agree with is your thoughts on gold, or buying gold as an asset. And that's my main one of my main arguments about gold too is being that it's not an income producing asset.
Yeah.
So if I want to buy an asset, if I want to own something, the main thing for me is that it can just generate passive income.
Yeah, I mean, if you can invest in gold mining and
Hmm.
be a part of the actual company, that's one thing, because then you can sell it. The thing about gold that's unique, which I think why it gets so much draw to it, is it's probably one of the only things in the world that works out both a commodity and a currency. Um, but it doesn't generate wealth in my perspective.
Absolutely. You work with several entrepreneurs, several wealthy investors. What have you learned from that experience? How is their mindset different from um, the other 90% of the world?
Yeah, it's so funny is I used to be on the other side of this, and I'm like, they just don't understand. They don't understand the everyday people. They don't understand what we're going through. And then once I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a whole new world that I have just been seeing wrong, and I don't understand, and most people don't understand. Um, so I think obviously the work ethic, they do the things that nobody wants to do, and they start it from scratch. So when you see these businesses that are crazy successful, everyone starts from zero. I don't care who you are, everyone starts from zero when they're starting a business. And their mindset is so unique in the fact that they see a goal and they get it. The other thing that I think is interesting as far as investment wise, for wealthy investors versus not, is they actually are a little more conservative on what the types of returns that they want to receive. So, you get a lot of people out here, and there are a lot of assets that will deliver you 15, 20, 25%. They're usually typically the riskier assets, and they can fluctuate quite a bit. And you got to be with the right companies, and they are out there, and I have a lot of them myself. But when you're working with wealthier investors, they're fine with 8 to 10% a year. That's not something that's going to deter them from something. And they know how to structure it and ladder different income sources and different, is this a long-term hold versus a short-term hold type of thing. So I do find them to be a little bit more considerate on what they invest in. Preservation being key for almost all of them is preservation and then income. And so that's something that's been really good. And then the other thing is, they don't let greed determine what they're going to invest in. Everything else is just kind of a bonus if it's above a certain investment for them. So I think their mentality on investments is a lot different from what I've seen. And also when they start. When I was a financial advisor starting out, I had a lot of clients who would come to me at 40, 45. And at the time, I'm young, I'm 30, and they're like, I need to start a retirement. And I'm like, okay, great. What are we working with? What do we have? Nothing. I haven't started at all for retirement, but I also want to retire early. It's like, oh, well, don't we all? Like, good luck. There's no magic pill that I can give you that's gonna fix that. And I think a lot of times people realize that they just need to be realistic, working with the more entrepreneurial mindset. When they look at their businesses, things like that, they're always looking at what's best, what's not risky, and they translate that over into the investment as well.
You mentioned how the wealthy understand how to structure their investments in their assets to create and rely on multiple streams of income.
Hmm.
Um, what would you say is the importance of being able to create different revenue streams?
I mean, yeah, so every market is different, right? So, you're gonna have like oil and gas, for instance. During COVID, it got to negative 40, $5 a barrel. That's when you buy, and that's when a lot of people did, because then the next year and next 2 years it went up to 125. So people who bought it low, I mean, they just made bank the last few years, which is great because that's the industry that I was in, so it was wonderful. But I think they understand that I'm not buying this to hold it for a year, hope that it pops, and then sell it. I'm going to buy multiple sectors in energy, real estate, and agriculture that are necessities. and they're just going to generate me consistent income. Sometimes it's, if you're looking at an average over the course of so many years, which is usually how they consider it, some years it's going to be 5%, some years it's going to be 12%. So you have to take the good with the bad in it and know that I'm diversified enough that when some investments are higher, some investments are lower, but it's not going to hurt me ultimately because I have the diversification needed in the different investments that are still generating me that income.
You've had the ability to travel, live in different areas, move to different places. How did you focus on building your network, building up your sponsors, um, getting that outreach to your clients? How did you focus on building that network, and how important has that networking piece been, towards your current success?
hmm I think for anyone, whether you're an investor or an entrepreneur, it's such a cliche saying, but your network really is your net worth. So if you have good investments, for instance, you're going to tell all your friends and family, "Hey, I invested with this company and they killed it. I do great. They're reliable. They're successful. You should invest with them." The same thing goes with being on the investor entrepreneur side. If I do what I'm supposed to do, if I deliver the service that I say I deliver and I get you the outcome that you want to get, you're going to refer me. And so that's why I don't charge an arm and a leg for anything, is because I believe that if I add value, someone's going to want to work with me and they're going to refer their friends and their family. Um, I was blessed enough that when I did work in my last role, all of my, and even currently, all of my clients are national. So, I was in Fargo, North Dakota, I was in Spearfish, South Dakota, I was in San Francisco and Florida, and I traveled literally to almost every single state. Um, and I got the experience of learning that there are a lot of differences and different viewpoints and different things in different states. Um, but if you just genuinely build the relationship with those investors, things just come naturally. For me, I think the biggest thing that I took away from it is I can do this on my own. I would like to do this on my own. I love the relationships with the clients that I had. I wanted to be bigger than just one asset in their portfolio. I wanted to help them with their whole portfolio. Um, so I think traveling, you learn a lot of different um, cultures in different cities, a lot of different people, how they invest and how they see things, how cities structure things, how taxes impact them. It's different in every state. So you kind of just learn a lot about the investor, but ultimately it all just comes down to relationship, and if you're a good person, they'll see it.
How do you define success as an entrepreneur and as a founder at this point in your career?
Um, I'm a big believer in, I mean, you're never gonna fully be as successful as you ever want to be. I've never met an entrepreneur, a millionaire, a billionaire. I've worked with both that say, "This is enough. I'm done." Um, I think just consistently showing up every day is successful. I'm am in a newer company. I mean, we've been around. We have a good thing going, but it's just being able to show up every day and see continual progression. So every day something new is happening that's putting me in a position that betters my company and betters my investors. And so I think a lot of it is kind of that mindset. Am I able to still wake up and go to the gym every day and know that, I need to do that? Am I doing all of the things that I have to absolutely do? I'm able to eat. I'm able to have a roof over my head and continue going. And so to me, I'm lucky and I'm blessed and I'm successful, and before I even get huge.
Absolutely, man. I think that's a super dope quote. I'm actually probably about to go tweet that right now. But you said consistently showing up every day is a success. And I think
Yes.
that's something that a lot of people overlook. Like, I think that was such a great answer. It's just um consistent progress that is the success.
That
Having
is.
the ability and the freedom to do what you love and do what you enjoy, that's the success in itself. It really sounds to me like falling in love with the journey, like falling in love with the process, you know?
Yeah, that kind of goes back to what I was saying, about school and work all the time. You have to love what you do, and if you love what you do, you're successful. I mean, everyone has a different vision of what that looks like. Some people dream of the picket white fence and the husband and the wife and the kids and all of that, and that is success to them. Another person, it's their business. So everyone has a different dream, but are you showing up every day to make that your reality? And if you are, even if you have days that you fail, I'm a big believer in failure. Everyone has to fail. I think failure is success because you learn from it and you're not going to repeat those same cycles. So I think just showing up for yourself even when you don't want to is success.
Absolutely. What does the future of passive income investors group look like to you?
Um, I really love the community. I love the continued growth that we're seeing. I would love to have just a large community of investors who don't just take the benefits away from the exposure and the access to, the investments that they get that they wouldn't normally get outside of it, but also to continue to learn and build and grow in their own businesses, and just become this like force of members who really understand and believe in the goal and then each other and just a community is really what I want. So just continued growth there. I've seen a lot of companies do what we do and they have 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 members. I don't want that. I'll never want that. I want to be an exclusive, tight knit community, of just people who enjoy the same things, take it seriously, and have a good time together.
Absolutely. Amanda Kay, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing this great information. Like I said, while you've been talking, I've been like taking notes and writing down all your quotes. This has been incredible to me. Um, and yeah, your mindset is amazing. So thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been a great experience for me. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you allowing me to be a part of your show.
Absolutely.